fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Thursday morning edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. All sorts of crazy issues this week. We had some technical issues. We had some internet issues. Hoping to get through this show unscathed. But I'll also tell you what, as we get deeper into January and into February, a lot less college football. We'll certainly preview Miami, Indiana on Sunday morning show. But today, folks, we got to talk college basketball. I thought Wednesday was maybe the best night of college basketball we've had. Obviously, Tuesday was good as well. We're going to talk about that thrilling win for Kentucky, what it means for the Wildcats, what it might not mean. Also, UNC falls, Vanderbilt falls from the ranks of the unbeaten. Going back to Tuesday, Kansas gets a big win, UConn gets a big win. And I do want to talk a little bit also about some other things that happened on Wednesday. So we'll be bouncing around a lot. Arkansas, the statement bounce back after the Auburn loss. BYU, late game, ugly game. AJ Dybantsa, though, is doing, as the kids say, historic stuff. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. Make sure you're subscribed to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips and videos going up every single day. We really do appreciate your support for the show. And I do want to mention it again. I appreciate everybody's support as we've kind of worked through some technical difficulties over the last couple weeks and couple episodes. So thank you for your support. And there is plenty to be excited about as we get deeper into January and deeper into February. You know what else I'm excited about? Our friends and our hotel and casino partners, Circa. So Circa Sportsbook in Vegas. It is the best place to watch games. But here is the thing. I know that not all of you can get out to Vegas. And so here is the great piece of news. You see that on the screen right there? That is the new Circa Sportsbook at beautiful Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. That is right, the Mint Gaming Hall. That picture straight from Torres' phone. Okay, so about 3-4 weeks ago, I was in to Nashville, drove down to the Mint. It's about 35, 40 minutes from Nashville to the Mint. And I only bring it up because it is the best place if you're on the East Coast to watch games. Biggest sports book in the state of Kentucky, right on that Kentucky-Tennessee border. Again, about 30, I did the math. 39 minutes door-to-door to Nashville, about 20 minutes or so from Bowling Green. And listen, I'll just say this. As we get deeper into college basketball season, you're going to want places to watch the big games. Obviously, NFL playoffs are underway. Oh, by the way, March is going to be here before we know it. Me and producer Matt will be out at the Mint doing some live shows, so I can't wait to see some of you there. But if you need a place to watch games on the East Coast, Mint Kentucky Downs, Mint Gaming Hall, the Mint in Franklin, Kentucky is the place to be at the new Circa Sportsbook. With that said, it is a busy Tuesday. Well, what is today? Thursday. In the world of sports, there is no more time to waste. So let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day. Listen, just a quick reminder for those of you, we have had so many thousands of you find us during college football season, but the college football news is really starting to ramp down pretty hard. We will obviously preview Indiana and Miami on Sunday morning show. But I'll tell you, Wednesday night, it felt like, listen, college hoops has been going on since November. I was literally at the season opening game, Arizona versus Florida in Vegas. But at the same time, Wednesday just felt like we're in league play. We're starting to learn about these teams. And where I want to start is Baton Rouge, Kentucky. Listen, unranked matchup of Kentucky versus LSU, maybe not the game that we all had circled on Wednesday night. But I'll tell you this, you talk about a game that was a must-win for both, and obviously for Kentucky. Listen, LSU, it was made very clear by Verge Osbury, the new AD at LSU, they don't make the tournament, Matt McMahon is out. He literally said that this week. But for Kentucky, listen, you're banged up. We found out this week that Jalen Lowe is going to be out for the season. But you know what? It's Kentucky. You're the Wildcats. You're the bluest of blue bloods. And listen, we know that in this NIL world, you spend a lot of money on this roster. None of it matters. You have to figure out a way. You have to grind through. And you got to find a way to get victories in what is certainly a different SEC from a year ago, but still a very tough league that I still think ends up with 6, 7, 8 NCAA tournament bids. So you come into Wednesday night, you got to beat LSU. The schedule is going to get tougher. They're down their best player, Didon Thomas Jr. And unfortunately, at least to start for Kentucky fans, the game kind of started out like pretty much every Kentucky game has for most of this season. Kentucky fell down by quite a bit, including 16 at the half. They certainly did rally in the second half. And then it was just this weird game of just all sorts of weird foul calls that we'll get into in a second. But it was a back and forth second half. And it was a game that after a late Ortega-Oweh foul, which we will again talk about in a minute, felt like it might just not be Kentucky's night. Well, I bring it up because with 1.9 seconds left, trailing by 1, I don't want to say the season was on the line, but if you lose this game, there's not a lot of excitement for what is ahead. I bring it up. We're going to set up this sound. We cannot play the video. By rule, we cannot play the video. I do want to play the radio call of the deep pass to Malachi Moreno, Tom Leach, Goose Givens on the call. Worth noting, by the way, it gets pretty loud, so adjust your speakers accordingly. Here is the radio call, Kentucky Radio Network, final play, Kentucky LSU.
Chandler looking, throws it way up into front court. Moreno catches, shoots for the win!
Ah! Oh, he got it!
It's a Bluegrass miracle!
Oh,
in Kentucky!
Oh, my! They're going to look at it, but the young fella, oh, man, what a great pass and catch in traffic.
Malachi Moreno at the buzzer. That call, Tom Leach, Goose Givens. Goodness gracious, what a call. Goodness gracious, what a win. And listen, I'm not going to do the whole hyperbolic Kentucky, the season's been saved. They're back on track. They're the greatest team in the history of college basketball. But you talk about a must-win game. You talk about a circumstance where if they lost, who even knows what the conversation is we're having today. It doesn't end up mattering. Kentucky gets the win. Final score 75-74. Now, I'll be real. Listen, I don't root for teams. I don't root for individuals. I really don't, okay? And fun fact, like we've had Matt McMahon, the LSU coach, on this show. So it's not like I was rooting for Kentucky. I will tell you this, though. In the lead up to that final shot, a lot of calls seemed to go against Kentucky and Baton Rouge. You had the Colin Chandler foul that was, called from about 50 feet away when there was a ref 2 feet away that didn't blow the whistle. You had the weird Ortega-Oweh. I think it was the right call on the floor where he makes a shot as the shot clock expires. The buzzer still, the timer still shows that there is time on the clock, but the red horn goes on behind the basket. So that gets called off. Then you have the Ortega-Oweh foul, another play that I cannot show you because of legalities, but it's on my Twitter feed. It set up the LSU lead. There was about 4 fouls on that play. I don't know that any of them were Ortega-Oweh. There was the hook from the offensive player. Then he leaned into him. Whatever. Does not matter. Kentucky gets the win. And I'll tell you this, they needed it. And during the sound, if you're watching on YouTube, producer Matt did a great job of showing all the visuals in still picture form, not in video. YouTube, if you're watching, we did not show any video. But the still pictures, you could see Mark Pope, hands in the air. I think the only word you can use is relief as Kentucky gets the victory to improve to 11-6, 2-2 in the SEC. And I'll say this, listen, again, for the 1,000th time, we're not going to overly celebrate and overly whatever, and this whole season has been turned around and whatever. I do think, though, especially given the injuries that you have dealt with over the last couple days or the last couple weeks, this is a positive, right? Jalen Lowe is out for the year. We know that, 2-3 times he had that shoulder injury. It popped back out against Mississippi State. They finally decided to shut him down for the year. Jaden Quaintance, what is actually going on? I don't know if anybody knows. I don't think that he's actively trying to shut it down, but I think he came back from knee surgery after 6 months. There's probably some swelling. There's probably some mobility issues, but this is just what this season is going to be, and you have to grind through it. And I think if you're looking for a glasses half full conversation about Kentucky, let me give it to you right now. And I give credit to Kentucky fans because they brought this up after the Mississippi State game. But a few things. I think there are 3 positives right now that you have to look at if you're a Kentucky fan, again, with the caveat that all of life's problems have not been figured out. But in a game that you had to have, really a second straight game that you had to have, you got it. One, listen, I'm not a scheme expert. I'm not an X's and O's guy. I say it all the time. But whatever Mark Pope's offense was, it's clearly not what it's going to be this year. They are starting to put the ball in the basket, though. Very bad stretch to start the LSU game, make no mistake. But first half against Mississippi State on Saturday, 44 points, 48 points in the second half, 96 points overall. And so I bring it up because the offense showed flashes, then 53 points in the second half against LSU. So listen, you're going to play good teams, you're going to play tough defenses, but against these teams that you have to beat, you're putting the ball in the basket, even if there are still stretches where you're struggling. I think number 2, Otega Oweh. He's playing like an all-SEC guy. Now listen, is he the favorite to win SEC Player of the Year? I'd probably give it to Darius Acuff. I'd probably give it to Tyler Tanner from Vanderbilt. But at the same time, look at what he has done the last 3 or 4 games. 4 straight games with 20-plus points. And listen, I thought what stood out to me about the Wednesday night win against LSU, it was clear late that he knew, hey, I'm supposed to be the SEC preseason Player of the Year. I have to be the guy to try to take over this game. And if you remember, late in the game, he got to the foul line and he basically just got the ball and he put his shoulder down and he's like, I am not settling for anything other than getting to the free throw line. And I think he is starting to play like that guy that you need consistently day in, day out. He obviously had the turf toe injury over the course of the summer. And so you get the fact that it wasn't always pretty, but it was it was good enough. By the way, the stat Matt is giving me, Otega Oweh has scored double figures in 20 straight games dating back to last year, 20 plus in each of the last 4. You need him to be great every night. Like, there is not enough wiggle room with this team right now with the injuries. You just need him to be great. And for the last couple weeks, he has been great. And I do think if you look at this thing, big picture for Kentucky, let me just say is that, you look at it and you say, listen, it's not what anybody thought it would be. You are 11-6. Your back is up against the wall. And let's call a spade a spade. There have been some very ugly moments throughout the season. The Gonzaga game, I think, was the lowest point. Obviously, Louisville, you fall down, you come back, you end up losing by whatever. Alabama was ugly to open SEC play. But you're 11-6. There's not really the terrible loss on the resume. Obviously, Missouri is one you wanted to have. Missouri's tied for first place at 3-1 in the SEC right now. They just beat Auburn on Saturday night as well, or on Wednesday night as well. And so we're not excusing the first loss ever to Missouri at Rupp Arena, but what we are acknowledging is no terrible losses. And then I think you start to look at the wins, and we talked about this a little bit the other day. I think it was after the Mississippi State game, where we said, well, wait a second now. Hold on. You go back 11-6, not good enough. We accept that. But Missouri, you were up by 6 with 4 minutes to go. Couldn't close it out. North Carolina, you lose by 3 in a game. You went 9 minutes without scoring. And then, of course, those are 2 wins right there where all of a sudden, let's just say you get those 2 wins right there. Now, all of a sudden, you're 13-4 rather than 11-6. It's still not pretty. You still have some ugly losses, but it's not the sky is falling situation. And so now for Kentucky, I think you're just hoping for any sort of consistency. You've seen some bright spots. Now, can you do it on a night-to-night basis? Can Otega Oweh be that SEC Player of the Year every single night? Andrea Jelovich looked good. He went from not starting at all, not playing at all, to in the starting lineup on Wednesday night. Cam Williams has had his moments. Malachi Moreno, that's the one guy. I go back to the Louisville game where I say he was the only one that showed up to play against Louisville back in the day. And he's limited as a true freshman as he should be, but that doesn't mean that he is not capable of being a very productive player in the SEC. And so listen, the schedule does get tougher. That's why this stretch was so important. But the good news is there are still winnable games in the SEC. Now, where it gets interesting is of your next 5 games, 3 of them are on the road at Tennessee, at Vandy, at Arkansas. Those are going to be some pretty tough games. But you get Ole Miss at home. I know Texas is hot. We'll talk about Texas in half a second. But I just bring it up because listen, the sky would have been falling if you lose this game. But you're 11-6. Can you grind enough? Can you just do enough to salvage this season? And I'll be quick because I want to get some other stuff. I don't care how bad it gets. Mark Pope's going to be back next year. Can you salvage this year? Do what you need to do to make a little bit of a run, save face, get respectable. And then I do think there are things to clean up in the offseason. But you needed the win on Wednesday. You get it. I still think Kentucky has enough on the resume, between the St. John's win, that's going to age well. Indiana, we'll see. They're still a tournament team. It's not going to be what we thought it was going to be, but there are still going to be plenty of opportunities. And the great thing is, like I said, even in a weird SEC, there are wins to be had. This is not last year where everyone has the best team in program history. Kentucky gets the win over LSU. Kentucky needed the win over LSU. And boy, oh boy, did they need it. I'll tell you what, I want to spend just half a second talking about a couple other games on Wednesday. Then we'll bounce to Tuesday. Then we'll bounce back to Wednesday because I do want to talk a little BYU win over TCU, Arkansas win over South Carolina. We'll get to all that in a second. Before we do, though, 2 other quick results that I thought were super notable. We're not going to spend a ton of time on them. But on Sunday's show, we talked about how the ACC is very clearly improved this year. Virginia, 15-2 right now. We'll talk about them in a minute and what they did at Louisville. Miami is quietly 15-2 in year 1 under Jay Lucas. Clemson, who has been good, is good again. Duke is what they are. One team we did not talk about was Stanford, though, and on Wednesday night, you talk about a wild game, a wild finish, a wild upset. Final score 95-90. Stanford gets the win. Remember, this is an ACC game. UNC goes west. By the way, Cal and Duke also played later in the night. And I'll say this. I think if you're a Carolina fan, you're crazy frustrated, and there may be a conversation to be had there. I think the story to me, though, is the Stanford Cardinal. I don't know how many times we've talked Stanford basketball on this show. Let's give credit where it's due. And it's crazy because we have this historic freshman class. Caleb Wilson, who, by the way, was absolutely incredible in this game. Cam Boozer, AJ Dybantsa, we'll talk about in a minute. All these great freshmen. Are you familiar with the name Ebuka Okori? Okay. If you're not familiar, freshman at Stanford, true freshman, not a red shirt, not a weird, he played 12 games at Duke and then transferred midseason. No. A true freshman. He was the 119th ranked player in the class of 2025, according to 24/7 Sports. And I am not criticizing them. Adam Finkelstein, Travis Branham, those guys do unbelievable work. This is not a criticism. Ebuka Okori was the 119th ranked player. He had 36 points in this game. That is a Stanford freshman record. But here's the crazy part. This is not like a one-off deal for him. He is the 5th leading scorer in all of college basketball. He is, by the way, the leading scorer in the ACC, the 119th ranked player in the class of 2025. And I'll be quick on this, but, I actually asked a coach that recruited him on Wednesday night. I was like, what's the story here? I didn't really get a good story. There has to be a story. How did everybody miss on him? I think they told the story a little bit during the game. Jason Smith, who's at Brewster Academy, basically was calling around, begging the high academic schools to take a look at this kid. And I think a couple of schools passed. Stanford finally got involved. And it feels almost like a Fernando Mendoza. Like I believe Yale was only his other offer. I don't know all the details, okay? I tried to do homework. There is no information on this kid on the internet anywhere, okay? But 36 points in this game. Stanford wins. Listen, Stanford, Kyle Smith. Remember, Kyle Smith 2 years ago was at Washington State, the last year of the Pac-12. They made the NCAA tournament. This dude is a hell of a coach. the Stanford Cal thing is going to be so tough because you spend so much time traveling in this conference. But Stanford right now is 14-4. They have wins over Louisville at home. They have wins over North Carolina at home. They also won at Virginia Tech. I think this is a tournament team. I feel like Gronk. Did you ever see the video of Rob Gronkowski trying to say Emeka Ibuka, and he says like Abika or something like that? That is me trying to say the name of Stanford star freshman Ibuka Okori. 36 points. I think Stanford's the story here. Now, again, North Carolina fans are not happy. This is their second road game, their second road loss in ACC play. They have given up an average of 96 points in those two games. And it is worth noting, North Carolina kind of scaled back the out-of-conference portion of their slate. So, you beat Kansas in a game where Darren Peterson gets hurt and kind of sits out. You have the ugly win against Kentucky. All of a sudden, you can kind of call into question the 14-3 regular season record. Is it a little bit fugazi? I don't know. But I'll tell you this with North Carolina, it's going to get a lot tougher. 3 of the next 4 are on the road. And oh, by the way, about 6 games from now, they will play Duke at home. So it's not going to get easier. I still believe in this team because I think Caleb Wilson is a potential first-team All-American. But man, oh man, does it have to get better than this. Really quickly, one other game from Tuesday night, Wednesday night, then we'll bounce to Tuesday. Wednesday night, Vanderbilt, undefeated no more. They lose to Texas on Wednesday night in Austin. My only real takeaway here is a couple things. One, the Vandy thing is incredible. We talked about them a little bit after they beat Alabama a few days ago. Great story, excellent team. Tyler Tanner's the real deal. I'll also say this, like they're very good. They're not so overwhelming that they're just going to destroy teams and that they're not going to win games when they don't show up ready to play. And so I only bring it up to very simply say that, you knew a loss was coming, but I think part of this is Texas as well. And listen, I'm a Sean Miller apologist. People, he's never made a Final Four. He's made 6 Elite Eights. Okay, he's been a game away from the Final Four, I think 4 or 5 times. And I said, when that dude gets to Texas, with the Texas resources that he will have available to him, that dude is going to win and win in a hurry. Well, I bring it up. The hurry part maybe didn't happen on the Texas time frame, but remember, Saturday night they go to Alabama and get the win. Now they knock off Vanderbilt. I think this is a tournament team as well. And I do think we were all critical of the SEC. It's not quite the same as last year, but I think that middle and bottom is starting to form. Texas is clearly getting better. Auburn's going to be tough on any given night. I consider them the middle of the league. Florida all of a sudden is playing really good basketball. Texas A&M easily could have beaten Tennessee after winning at Auburn. That to me is kind of that middle tier, and I think it's starting to rise. Like I said, I think the SEC really will be in a nice position to get about 7 or 8 teams in the NCAA tournament. We'll see exactly who they are. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we do, I actually want to go back to Tuesday night, couple results from there. UConn with the, that kind of win. Iowa State knocked from the ranks of the unbeatens. Then I do want to talk a little bit more about Wednesday, where Arkansas with the major win, BYU with another great night from AJ Dybantsa. Then we'll talk a little college football. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, let's be real. Nothing ages you faster this time of year than following your favorite college football team. The recruiting, transfer portal, NIL, maybe you had a coaching change, maybe you're even getting ready for a postseason game. Well, unless you're Notre Dame, another conversation for another day. But it leaves wrinkles and does a number on a man's face. That's why, folks, I use Tiege Hanley. Yes, I've been telling you about Tiege Hanley. I started using it about a month ago now, and I'll tell you what, I look better and my skin feels better even during this hectic time of year. Among my favorite products, the Super Serum and Eye Serum, they've been legit game changers. Fine lines, softer. Under eye bags, way less brutal. Yeah, I might be up all hours of the night watching all sorts of games, but with Tiege Hanley, you'd never know it. What I love about Tiege, everything they make is high quality and designed for us guys. They send you exactly what you need each month, so you don't have to wander around a store pretending that you know what all these labels mean. By the way, ladies, this time of year, this makes the perfect gift for the fella in your life who needs help, your dad, your friend, your coworker, whoever looks like he might, have a couple wrinkles rolling in from watching too much film in the middle of the night. Right now, this is what I love about Tej. They're giving listeners of the Aaron Torres pod a special offer, 40% off your first box plus a free $20 gift. That's an insane deal for how high these quality products are. All you got to do is just click that link below. That's 40% off your first box plus a $20 free gift. An insane offer. Just click the link below. Football might drain you emotionally, but Tej keeps you looking really good. Even as, again, you're breaking down film late at night. You're not a coach, but you know what? Tej Hanley's going to make you look good anyway. All right, everybody. All right, back. Good to be back. Thank you again to Tej Hanley. We will drop the link in the description of this show, but great products. I mean, look at this skin. Look at this beautiful skin. Thank you to Tej Hanley for all of their help. Really quickly, we're going to do the weird thing where we go back to Tuesday, then we'll come back to Wednesday for a few more results. But I thought there were some notable things that did happen on Tuesday night in college hoops. No Wednesday show. I was doing radio all day yesterday. But as far as Tuesday night, we talked about on Wednesday, Vandy falling from the world of the unbeatens. Iowa State also fell from the world of the unbeatens on Tuesday night. They lose to Kansas at Fog Allen Fieldhouse, 84-63. Iowa State came in as the number 2 team in the country. They fall. They are no longer unbeaten. Let me say this. One, from the Iowa State perspective, I know there's nothing to worry about. This is the Big 12. There are so many good teams in this league. And I'll tell you what, February, I think we're going to be talking a lot of Big 12 because between Kansas, Arizona, BYU, Texas Tech, Iowa State, Houston, it's just going to be every single night there is going to be a war. But what I think is also worth noting is this is college basketball. In league play, if you don't show up ready to play, you are not going to have success. And so you look at whether it's Iowa State against Kansas, you look at Arkansas against Auburn, you look at Vandy against Texas on Wednesday night, you don't show up ready to play, you're going to lose. And that's exactly what happened to Iowa State. I'm not worried. I still think they're a top 5 team in the country. They have the win over Purdue, but obviously not what you wanted. From the Kansas perspective, listen, kind of want to sort of call it a must win. They came into this game at 11-5 overall. They lost on the road at West Virginia. They barely survived against TCU the other day. This was not a game that you could afford to lose. Listen, if you lose to the number 2 team in the country, no one's going to freak out. But you get the win. It's another nice resume win. I mean, that's the thing about Kansas, right? You go through the out of conference. They won against Tennessee on a neutral in Vegas in a game that I wasn't at, but I was kind of at. They have the win over NC State. They have the win over Missouri. I mean, these are good wins, but you need the wins in Big 12 play as well. So they get the win. Darren Peterson, for the most part, was kind of available for this game. I will say, he is really good. And it's just I just want him to be healthy. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting weird Kawhi Leonard vibes from the Spurs. But when he's on the court, you just see how easy it is for everybody else. I thought Trey White was excellent in this game for Kansas. I thought that it was just one of those classic college basketball games that Kansas needed a win. Kansas gets a win. And like I said, you need it because it's going to get so much tougher for Kansas. Later this month, you still have BYU at home. You have at Texas Tech. You have 2 games against Arizona. You still have Houston at home. So this was one, again, I can't say you had to have it, but it certainly is nice. Kansas gets the victory on Tuesday. And there is a little bit of a stretch here where they could, in theory, go on a run because the next 3 before it gets really tough, Baylor at home on Friday, at Colorado, at Kansas State. Kind of got to go 3-0 in those games because after that it is BYU at Texas Tech. Then we're in February and the schedule gets tougher. Let's stay on Tuesday night. Man, oh man. UConn, Seton Hall. Okay, so first of all, Seton Hall, I don't know how many people know this, is in the top 25. Really good team. Shaheen Holloway is doing as good of a coaching job as anybody in college basketball. I also don't know how many other people know this as well. UConn had lost 4 straight at Seton Hall coming in to Tuesday night. That included both national championship teams in 2023 and 2024. The 2024 team that we thought was historically great with Steph Castle, Donovan Clingan, they end up losing at Seton Hall that year. Last year, when Seton Hall was the worst team in the Big East, UConn lost there as well. And so I just bring it up because, UConn fans, somebody hired a witch doctor. I swear to God, this really happened. Somebody hired a witch doctor to try to cleanse things. Dan Hurley was asked about it after the game. He got into this weird back and forth with Andy Katz, but they get the win. It isn't pretty. They blew an 18-point halftime lead. But again, getting their first win at Seton Hall since the 2020 COVID season. The only thing I'll say about UConn, it's a weird year because they're 17-1. By the way, this is an incredible stat. First 17-1 start since the 1999 season. That was the first national championship. Rip Hamilton, Khalid El-Amin. I mean, we're talking a long time ago, okay? And so I bring it up because it should be this moment of celebration for UConn fans. I think UConn fans are a little, I don't know what the right word is, not mad, but it doesn't feel like UConn has still totally figured it out. You look at this UConn team, they're, again, 17-1, 7-0. They've already played 7 league games, 4 on the road, 1 at Seton Hall, 1 at Providence. But outside of probably a stretch against Providence, it's been kind of up and down over the last couple weeks since Big East play started, and it hasn't always been pretty. So we'll see what happens with UConn. They go back on the road again this weekend at Georgetown. We'll see if that has any impact on them after, the emotional win on Tuesday night. But it's just kind of a weird thing at UConn right now. You're 17-1. You beat Georgetown. You'll be ranked number 2 in the country probably on Monday. I guess if Arizona wins, you could be number 1. I think UConn fans are in this weird thing of like, we're playing well, we're winning games, and we are still far from reaching our pinnacle, and I think that's a good thing if you're a UConn fan. You know where things aren't good right now? In Louisville with the Louisville Cardinals. So Tuesday night, they host Virginia. It got ugly. Final score was 79-70. It was not that close. They fell down double figures, and it was kind of one of these back and forths where, they would cut it to 5, and then it'd be back to 13. Then they cut. There was never a moment where you're like, oh, Louisville's going to win this game. And so they lose this game. They have now dropped 3 of their last 4. And all I'll say is, the old Torres, I don't know what the right word is, but there's a little something going off with Torres here. I don't know what's going on. And I've been hesitant to even talk about this team because Mikal Brown Jr. is out. And until Mikal Brown Jr. comes back, I think it's hard to judge them. And we remember what they look like with Mikal Brown Jr. Beat Kentucky. You can't say they blew them out, but it was a blowout for most of the game. Blew out Indiana, was having a ton of success. But without him, they have been a completely different team. And there's no real timeline as to when he's coming back. And we know it's a back injury, but we don't know much else about it. And then, oh, by the way, there was the weird thing. Did you guys see this? The story about Louisville was one of the teams that brought in one of those G League players. His name's London Johnson. Well, I bring it up because London Johnson, the expectation was for him to redshirt. Then last week, Pat Kelsey says, oh, no, he's going to play this year. They announced before the Boston College game on Saturday he's going to play. He doesn't play. Then Pat Kelsey has to come back and say he's not. There's just something weird going on. And maybe it's all Mikal Brown Jr. not being healthy. And maybe once he comes back, they're going to look like the top 10 team that they did. But to the point on the screen, they've now dropped 3 out of 4. They're really, really, really struggling. They were a team that I really thought had like Final Four upside. But you look at this team, and like I said, they've lost 3 of 4. In hindsight, the losses aren't terrible, but, wasn't really that competitive in the second half against Duke. You were up at the half and then just got blown out in the second half. The Stanford loss all of a sudden looks better, but there's just something not quite right that I can't quite put my finger on. Tell you what, where the things are not going wrong is BYU. So let's talk really quickly. Let's go back to Wednesday. So for everyone that's following this live, I apologize, but I'm just trying to get in a lot of different things at a lot of different times. And so let's go ahead and talk BYU. BYU, listen, I've said for weeks, I think they're the most under-discussed team in college basketball. 1 loss this season to UConn back in early November. They've ripped off 11, 12, 13 straight wins since then. They beat their big rival Utah in Salt Lake City on Saturday night. And I just said it's time to show this team some respect. Well, I bring it up because they go home on Wednesday. Weird game, late start. The refs are all over the place. Richie Saunders is in foul trouble. And it is worth noting, by the way, TCU kind of needed this win. TCU, remember, was playing really well. They almost win at Fog Allen, probably should have won at Fog Allen, lose in overtime. Then they get blown out by Arizona. So they're desperate. They come to Provo. They keep things close. But BYU ends up getting the victory over TCU. Final score in this game was 76-70. And I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say it was the prettiest performance ever and show BYU some respect. It was sloppy. It was ugly. It was a late start. There was foul stuff. But BYU gets the win to improve to 16-1, 4-0 in the Big 12. And with it, it's not just that they're 16-1. It's not just that they're 4-0. It's not just, by the way, the schedule is certainly going to get tougher. At Texas Tech this weekend, that's where it all begins, right? But at the same time, the one thing I can say is this, is that it's a weird dichotomy. We don't talk NBA draft on this show because you guys don't care. We're a college audience. I love you guys, and I love talking the college side of things. But it's this weird dichotomy where everybody in the NBA draft community is talking AJ Dybantsa. I don't think we're talking about BYU enough in the college basketball space, right? Like, I just thought AJ Dybantsa at BYU and him playing at the level that he is would be a huge conversation. It just hasn't really become the conversation that I thought. But I'm rambling. I bring it up to say, listen, man, there are so many good freshmen this year in college basketball. AJ Dybantsa, though, has not only met expectations, like somehow, some way, he has absolutely exceeded them. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say that, again, on a night where Richie Saunders was in foul trouble, where other guys weren't stepping up, a couple guys are banged up, not in the lineup. The reason they won this game is because they had AJ Dybantsa. The other team did not. 25 points. This was crazy. 17 points in the first 9 minutes of the second half when his team needed a jolt. AJ Dybantsa was the guy who got them on a night, by the way, where apparently we found out after the fact that he was sick with the flu. So AJ's flu game, we've seen a flu game in Utah. This one worked out better for the locals. But then two, also on top of it, there was a weird thing. Who was watching the game where he hurt his shoulder and you're sitting there saying he can't move his shoulder? Oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Rub some dirt on it. He comes back and is awesome. And what stood out to me about this game is a couple things. Is one, first of all, what AJ is doing at this point, it's not just good, it's historic, okay? So I saw this stat. Matt, by the way, this is your 2-minute clip right here. I saw this stat on AJ Dybantsa. With this game, he scored 20 straight points for his 10th straight game. The last game he did not score 10 points or did not score 20-plus points was back on 11/28. So the last time he did not score at least 20 points was Thanksgiving week, and this from the Twitter handle Top Recruits. 10 straight games of 20-plus points with another 25-point game last night and the flu. This is crazy. He passed Kevin Durant for most consecutive 20-point games in Big 12 history as a freshman. Hottest player of the Big Three at BYU. Did you hear that? Did you hear that stat I just told you? He broke Kevin Durant's record for most 20-plus point games consecutively as a Big 12, as a freshman in the Big 12. Listen, as somebody who was, I'm a few years older than Kevin Durant, but I was watching those games in real time. That Kevin Durant season, it was every single night became appointment viewing. And that's exactly what AJ is right now, is when you're breaking Kevin Durant's records, you're historic. And I will say, I do think it's time to start talking about him as National Player of the Year. Now, we'll get to it in a second. But before we do, I thought it was interesting. Kevin Young, after the game, the BYU head coach, remember, this is a guy who coached Kevin Durant in the NBA, who coached Devin Booker in the NBA. Not Kevin. I know Devin Booker. I know D-Book. I've been knowing D-Book forever, okay? Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Joel Embiid. He was on staff coaching those guys. Listen to what he said about AJ after the game. This is very interesting to me.
I think it was just AJ realizing what's needed. I don't have to say a whole lot to AJ. AJ's a great player. Even on an off night, the guy still looks like an all-world guy, generational type guy, even when he's sick. He threw me off with the long sleeves. I'll be honest, that threw me off. So I was like, oh boy, I don't like when guys just do random stuff like that. I'm so routine driven. I was like, what's happening right now with the sleeves? But he's a tough-minded kid. He didn't really say a whole lot to anyone about him not feeling great. So, he just got in that mode that great players are able to get into.
One, I love the honesty and transparency with Kevin. Yeah, I didn't like those sleeves. He actually had a funny rant after that about the sleeves again. But did you hear what he said? He said, what AJ did, not feeling well, 25-plus points, that's what an all-world generational type talent does. By the way, thank you, Matt, for the reminder. If you are a BYU fan finding us for the first time, make sure you follow our Torres on BYU account on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, a lot of great BYU coverage. Our intern Jake does an amazing job with that account. Okay, so with BYU, I bring it up because to me, with AJ, first of all, when you have a coach that has been around Kevin Durant, been around Devin Booker, been around Joel Embiid, and he calls AJ Dybantsa generational, we need to start listening. But beyond that, not only do we need to start listening to Kevin Young, who knows more basketball than any of us will ever forget, what we also need to do is acknowledge this. It's time to really put AJ Dybantsa in that National Player of the Year conversation. Now, to be clear, this is not a knock on Cam Boozer. If I had a vote today for National Player of the Year, it would be Cam Boozer. So this is not a knock, not a criticism, not anti-Duke, not Duke stinks, not nothing like that. But at the same time, what AJ Dybantsa is doing, again, is not just great. It is quite literally historic. We just mentioned 10 straight games of 20-plus points, breaking Kevin Durant's record. When you're breaking Kevin Durant's record, you're good. Oh, by the way, third leading scorer in the country. Leading scorer in the Big 12, the toughest conference in college basketball, in my opinion, bar none. Now, admittedly, things are going to get tougher. Texas Tech this weekend, Arizona a week from this coming Monday. It doesn't change the fact that he needs to be in this conversation. And I think we're all talking Cam Boozer. I think we're all talking a lot of different things. I don't think we're talking AJ as the National Player of the Year, and we should. And if he keeps doing this game over game, I think we're going to continue to have the conversation. The other thing with AJ that I do think is kind of worth noting, it's not just that he's scoring points. He's doing it in a very efficient manner. 56% shooting from the field. About 4 assists per game for a guy that doesn't necessarily have the ball in his hands. So, we've seen guys that put up stats and they're meaningless and they're on bad teams and they don't make other players better. He's making other players better. He's getting other players involved. He himself is playing like a National Player of the Year. Should mention, by the way, 7 rebounds for a team that outside Keba Keita right now does not have a lot of size, although my guy Kadeem Boop played very well on Wednesday night. But listen, not going to sit here and say that it was the greatest win ever, but when you needed buckets in crunch, not really in crunch time, but kind of in that stretch where you needed to make a run, it was AJ Dybantsa with the sleeves, with the flu, helping you get that win. And like I said, man, I do think in the bigger picture, when a team is sitting there in the Big 12, now 4-0 in league play, 16-1 overall, best start at BYU in a long time, I think they're a total legit contender. And again, they beat TCU in a game that Richie Saunders was in and out of the lineup with foul trouble. Rob Wright was good. You had some injuries. You still found a way to get a win. One team, this will be the last basketball stuff, then we'll do some football to wrap the show. One team that did not need to rally to get a win? Let's talk the Arkansas Razorbacks. So Arkansas hosting South Carolina. And it is worth noting, by the way, Arkansas is coming off that ugly loss against Auburn on Saturday. And it's funny, I'll tell a quick side story before I get to Wednesday night's game. But we really didn't talk about Auburn, Arkansas much on Sunday's show. And I did a podcast. I did an Arkansas podcast with my guy Jackson Collier from the Rivals Arkansas site. Jackson Collier, Daniel Fair had a blast talking to those guys. And they were asking me, they were like, how worried are you? And I love those guys. So I hope this doesn't come off as any sort of criticism. But they were like, how worried are you about the Auburn performance? And I said, I'm not worried. This is SEC play. This is league play. And again, this is the reality of college basketball, right? Iowa State, number 2 team in the country, goes to Kansas, not ready to play. They get blitzed. Vanderbilt goes to Texas, not ready to play, undefeated. They get blitzed. Arkansas went to Auburn, not ready to play. They get blitzed. And so I only bring it up because what stood out to me coming out of that game was John Calipari basically saying, like, we're not talking about this. We're not watching the tape. We're not overanalyzing it. I didn't have my team ready to go. That's on me. We need to move on. Now, the question would be, how did they respond on Wednesday? Well, you can't respond much better than what we saw from Arkansas on Wednesday night at home against South Carolina. Final score 108-74. And I'll be transparent. If you watch the game, it actually wasn't really that close, because I think South Carolina scored like 8 or 9 points late when Arkansas had put in the walk-ons, and we got an Elmir Zvacic sighting. I remember talking about him when he committed a few months back. But Arkansas gets the 108-74 win. And it's funny because if you're asking me for takeaways, who played well, who didn't, quick spoiler alert, everyone played well, okay? And so first of all, it starts with Darius Acuff. We just talked about A.J. Dybantsa as a National Player of the Year candidate. I think Darius Acuff, and they said it on the broadcast, if he's not your SEC Player of the Year favorite right now, he's got to be in the short conversation of 2 or 3 guys. He is that good. Can you argue this was actually his best game? 18 points, 13 assists, 0 turnovers. That sounds like a made-up stat line. Like, who as a true freshman in SEC play against anybody? 18, 13, and 0 assists. I love the way, we just talked about this with Dybantsa. I love the way he let the game come to him. Didn't try to do too much. There were 2 or 3 plays early where Malik Ewan was running the floor and he just hit him with a beautiful pass. He always seemingly makes the right decision. I just love everything about watching this guy play. And beyond him, what stood out is basically everybody was awesome on Wednesday night for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Malik Thomas, I thought maybe his best game as an Arkansas Razorback. 5 of 5 from beyond the 3-point line. You know, as an old school college basketball guy, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Ray Allen at UConn. Now, Ray Allen as a freshman was a lot different than Ray Allen as a junior, and certainly different than Ray Allen as an NBA player, but the same kind of wiry body type, the way he moves, the way he shoots the ball, 5 of 5 shooting from beyond the 3-point arc, 21 points off the bench. Malik Ewan, I think he's getting better and better every single game. I do think there's a question of should he be starting over Nick Pringle, but if John Calipari wants to bring him off the bench, it doesn't seem to be impacting this team. So Arkansas gets the win, and I'll say 2 things. One, if Arkansas plays like that, if they come out ready to go, focused, competitive on both ends of the floor, and I don't care that it's South Carolina. I don't care that South Carolina isn't good. You don't put up 108 points if you're not locked in, ready to go. If they play like that, they can beat absolutely anybody in college basketball, and they've already proven it. Easily could have beaten Duke. Easily could have beaten Michigan State. Easily did beat Tennessee at home. Easily did beat Louisville at home. Beat Texas Tech. So they can play with anybody if they play like that. The big question is, can you get that performance every single game, and can you get your team playing at that level? And it's interesting. I listened to John Calipari's press conference after this game. I thought he had an interesting comment about this particular team. Now, I will note we're going to play some sound in a second. I want you to listen to about the first 5 seconds. Then he kind of gets sidetracked talking about the Auburn game, but I think there's some important elements there. But here was John Calipari, and I want you to listen to the first 5 or so seconds and what he has to say about this team.
This team has a chance, and it's my job to stay on this, and my will be stronger than their will. What happened at Auburn, I take as much responsibility as any player on this team. And I told you, I was disappointed in myself. And part of it was I didn't recognize what was happening. And let me tell you how coaching is. When things are going good, you sometimes put your head in the sand and just try to win the next game. And normally, you get kicked in the butt while your head's in the sand at some point. And so I kind of did that. Like, we win a couple games, we're in first place, and we're doing it. We're going to Auburn, blah, blah, blah. And I so I got a job to do for these guys.
So first of all, again, did you listen to the front end? He said, and I quote, "We've got a shot." And then he did and we'll get back to the "we've got a shot" part of it, but then he did the second part where he talked about Auburn, and I give him credit, right? And I know a lot of coaches do this. I'm not saying he's the only one and this is the most, but he took full blame. He was just like, look, you get into the grind of league play every single night, you win a couple games, you just start focusing on the next one without really having the pulse of your team. And basically, I thought the back half, he was kind of insinuating, I didn't have my team ready to go. I was not ready to, it's on me. Don't blame the players. But what I would also say is this, is one, I thought the front part was very important. He said, we've got a shot. And what that means to me is pretty straightforward. John Calipari has been doing this a long time. And I've been telling you guys since the summer when this schedule came together, I said, he likes this team. I said, I know how Cal thinks and I know how Cal schedules. And when you put Michigan State on the road, on the schedule, this wasn't part of the ACC, the SEC something challenge. This wasn't part of this. No. He put them on the schedule voluntarily. He put Duke on the schedule voluntarily. He put Texas Tech and Dallas on the schedule voluntarily. That's on top of SEC play, on top of an ACC, SEC challenge game against Louisville. He put Houston on this. How could I forget about Houston? And so I knew he liked this team, but now to me, it is about consistency. Can you do it every single game? Instead of 1 to 2 games where you play at your absolute best, can it be 6, 7, 8 in a row? Because if they do that, nobody in this league can beat Arkansas at its absolute best. Vandy's good. Alabama's good. Tennessee's good. A&M's good. You get the version of Arkansas that South Carolina got on Wednesday night, you're not beating that team. And now it's on John Calipari and it's on those players to give that effort every single game. Good news is do a little good news, bad news. The good news is Cal's teams usually get better as the season goes on. And I know we're going to have a Kentucky fan in the chat. Well, what about this season? I'm just telling you. Historically, his teams really start to peak around early to mid-February. And by the way, that's what happened last year with Arkansas. Look at the Arkansas team on February 1 versus January 1. It was like lightning and, it was like two different teams. I don't know why I was going to say lightning. They're lightning in a bottle. I don't know. Been rambling for 52 straight minutes here. Forgive me, okay? I bring it up to very simply say that when I look at Cal, his teams get better. So if they're playing like this now in January, can they do this on a consistent basis over an 8-10 game stretch as we get February into March? I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. And the good thing is, like I keep saying, the SEC is good, but there's no stretch that you're going to find on a schedule that you just say, oh, if we can get out of that, 2-2 or 1-3, like we'll take 2-2, 1-3. There's not that stretch on the schedule. I will say, I think Saturday at Georgia is an important one. Who are you as a team? Because if you're a legitimate SEC title contender that can legitimately beat the best teams in this sport, I know Georgia's good. I also know that Georgia has lost 2 straight games, including a loss to Ole Miss on Wednesday night at home. Or they've lost 2 out of their last 3, excuse me. And so I just bring it up because Georgia's a good team. Georgia's not unbeatable, though. And so if you're that kind of team, Arkansas, go ahead and show it. Go ahead and show us. Prove to us just how good you are. All right. So what we're going to do, we'll take one more break. I have one football story that I do want to get to. I actually want to see if there's any interesting comments in the chat. Quick break. One football recruiting story as the portal starts to wind down. Quick break. Be right back. All right. We're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Cauley Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Cauley Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Cauley Puffs. baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to Caulipuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, Caulipuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase, 1 bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. Caulipuffs.com gets you 15% off. Caulipuffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but Caulipuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Caulipuffs. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. One football segment to wrap the show. By the way, I see somebody talking about a point shaving scandal in the chat. I have not seen anything about this. If I'm missing anything, I apologize. I know there was one in China. We don't cover much, CBA, Chinese Basketball Association, in this show. But if there's anything else, I will certainly let you know. But yeah, what a world. What a world. No point shaving with 20 teams, at least that I have seen. Let's go ahead and wrap the show. One football story. And we're really not by choice. I wish college football, there was more to talk about. But we have one game left in the season. We will certainly be discussing Miami, Indiana on Sunday morning show. But it's kind of that time of year where stuff is really starting to slow down. Rosters are largely set. Remember, second semester has started at virtually every school in the country. So there's just not that much portal news. There's only one game left. And, rosters are basically set for the 2026 season. And now we'll have spring ball and we'll have this and we'll have that. But we're going to scale back a lot of the football conversation. I only bring it up to say there are still a couple intriguing names in the transfer portal. And there is absolutely no one more intriguing than that gentleman that you see on the screen, Jordan Seaton. Okay, so we talked about him a little bit on Wednesday's show, Tuesday's show, whenever we last did a show. But remember, this was the number one high school offensive tackle in the transfer portal, or in high school football, 3 cycles ago. It was a guy that came down to Oregon and Tennessee and Ohio State, and seemingly out of nowhere commits to Colorado, Deion Sanders, and Coach Prime. Okay, I know Deion Sanders and Coach Prime are the same thing, but you get the point. So Deion gets that huge commitment. It's this signature moment. And remember, this was coming off the first 4 and 8 year for Colorado under Coach Prime. And they needed O-line help. They get the number one offensive tackle in America. Well, I bring it up because I guess it was late Monday night, about 72 hours or so before the portal closes. Jordan Seaton, who has not only been at Colorado for 2 years, but it's worth noting has been really good at Colorado for 2 years, officially entered the transfer portal. It was crushing for Colorado. There's all sorts of stuff that's come out about how it went down. Did he have the Colorado, social media team make him a video to go? It was a weird deal, but he's in the portal right now. And I will say this, the rumors about his recruitment are ramping up. They are certainly getting interesting if you are a college football fan. And before we get to all the latest rumors, I should mention, this is one of those very unique deals where when you look at Colorado, by the way, Matt, we forgot to do SeatGeek. We'll have to do this after. We'll have to do that after, but I did drop the link in there. So, all right. So as far as Jordan Seaton is concerned, by the way, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, if you're watching later, gets you $20 off. We'll do that later. But I bring it up because with Jordan Seaton, it's a very unique situation. No matter how he entered the portal, no matter how badly he screwed Coach Prime, the bottom line is he is a very unique prospect from this perspective. It's not that often that you get a player this good at this premium of a position. Okay, so keep in mind, the college football is ultimately no different than the NFL. There are 3 positions you need to be great at to compete at the highest level, and they're all positions of scarcity. You need to be great at quarterback. You need to be great on the edge. You need to have a guy that gets after the passer. That's obviously the edge. And then you need an elite offensive tackle to protect your quarterback's blind side. And so the fact that this kid, who will be a first-round pick in the 2027 NFL draft, was one of the best offensive tackles in college football this year, became available this late in the process. It is a huge story, and you can see how big it has become just by the types of schools that are recruiting him, who is recruiting him. And let me even put it this way. If you don't have a ton of money, don't even enter the picture, because the fact that he entered so late and will still probably go down as one of the 3 or 4 highest paid players in the portal, maybe the highest paid non-quarterback, shows you how in demand he is. So first of all, when he entered the portal, there were all sorts of rumors of like, what is he going to command? I think we might have mentioned on Wednesday's show that I think it was Shannon Terry from On3 basically. No, Shannon Terry did the Cam Coleman one. But people were talking about, is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4 million? Because again, you're going to pay Sam Levitt $5 or $6 million. I'd pay Jordan Seaton just the same. He has that much impact on the field. Well, according to Darren Heitner, he's one of these NIL lawyers. He actually quote tweeted a Florida booster. Florida was in the recruitment when he came out of high school. I don't think they are now. Darren Heitner said that according to a Florida booster on social media, $2.5 million is the asking price for Colorado offensive tackle Jordan Seaton, who hit the transfer portal on Monday. The former 5-star from IMG is a projected future first rounder. So you want to know where the bidding begins for a potential first-round offensive tackle in college football. You better have $2 million in your piggy bank. Now, again, this speaks to the fact that nobody is abiding by the House settlement, $20.5 million, but I don't really care. If you're good enough, pay the players. It doesn't matter to me. By the way, we have a national championship game where Indiana and Miami have embraced NIL. I don't think either of them has one of the 2 or 3 most expensive rosters in college football, and they're still playing for a title. So I don't really care. Pay them whatever. But what I do think is interesting, we're now starting to get leaks of who could potentially be interested and who is willing to pay the money. On Wednesday's show, we talked about, it was Tuesday's show, but you get the point. We talked about the fact that Oregon and Texas were believed to be the front runners for him, and thought it was interesting. There was a report out of Texas. OrangeBloods.com is the OG original first ever like Texas. It was one of the first sports blogs, like pay for play blogs on the internet that I remember. Like, it is the OG Texas site. And Matt, you can pop up what Orange Bloods said about the situation. This is from OrangeBloods.com. Jordan Seaton update. Source with a knowledge of the situation tells Orange Bloods that Jordan Seaton is not only a player that the Longhorns have interest in, but he is the Moby Dick on the offensive line front they've been patiently waiting for. Quote, early vibe is that Texas likes their chances versus the field. Seaton could command as much as $3 million, potentially getting close to 4. So 2.5 was the starting asking price. It's already at 3, maybe at 4. Okay, so Texas to me is very much going to be in the mix. And we talked about Texas on the last show. Listen, it is an all-in situation for Sark next year. Arch Manning is going to be almost certainly, in his final year of eligibility as a college football player. He has another year of eligibility, but it will probably be his last year as the quarterback at Texas. You went and spent on Cam Coleman. You went and spent on Hollywood Smothers. To me, I don't understand. You clearly have the money. I mean, it's not my money, so I'm not the one writing the checks. But if you have a chance this late to get a first-round offensive tackle, go ahead and do it. What do you have to lose? Why not? Like, to me, it just makes so much sense. And I think if you have the money, do it, because, again, you're all in for next year anyway. It's almost like, you know what it's like? It's like Ohio State a few years ago. It's like, oh, we already have Jeremiah Smith and this guy and that guy, but we can get Quinshon Judkins. We can get Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs was like, they didn't need Caleb Downs, but they're like, we already spent all this money anyway. If we're going to go all in, let's go all the way in. And that's the vibe that Texas is giving off right now. Thought it was interesting. I saw a very interesting tweet out of the Miami community. Now, Miami certainly, they're feeling themselves. I think they will have whatever money they need to spend after making a national championship game run. They clearly build through the trenches. Now, they're going to lose a couple of their offensive linemen. They do have Jackson Cantwell, the number 1 offensive lineman in the class of 2026 coming. But again, you have a chance to add Jordan Seaton, You got to consider it. And I will tell you what, you talk about a semi, I guess you can't call it tampering because he was already in the portal. How about Michael Irvin? We've seen him on the sidelines doing the BTA. He tweeted on Wednesday, he said, quote, Jordan, my boy, if you were going to leave my boy Deion Sanders, you might as well come to see his boys at the Canes, me. In other words, Michael Irvin, jokingly tweeting about, hey, if you're going to leave Deion and you still got another year, you might as well come hang with us. Now, I'll be honest, I think that's a little bit weird, a little bit weird. Be like, your boy breaks up with his girl and it's like, well, I mean, if you're not going to be with him, come be with me. I think it's a little bit weird, but whatever. Jordan Seaton certainly noticed that tweet from Michael Irvin. He quote tweeted Michael Irvin saying, quote, let's meet up there, Michael Irvin. So we'll see if Miami is now in the mix. And then I will say, obviously, Oregon got really good news on whatever day it was, Wednesday, the NFL draft deadline. Dante Moore coming back as the potential number 1 overall pick in the 2027 draft. Jordan Seaton tweeting, quote, wait, Dante Moore came back? So I bring it up because Jordan Seaton not afraid to use his social media. Now, I think it's a little disrespectful to Colorado fans, but it is what it is at this point. I'm not going to criticize too hard, but I mean, this is what this recruitment is going to be. It is going to be the biggest heavy hitters with the most money to spend, and it is going to be for a premium prospect at a premium position. Again, listen, we could do these portal segments for another 100 years, and the likely, not 100, but another 10 years, the likelihood of a offensive tackle, a left tackle as good as Jordan Seaton going in the portal as late as this happened, it's just not going to happen. Most of the great offensive tackles, they're already at Texas. They're already at Georgia. They're already at Ohio State. They're not going in the portal. And if they do, it's certainly not going to be this late. And usually when we're talking about great tackle prospects, we're talking about the guy that came from the G5 or came from JUCO or is a freshman. To have a dude that is at a premium position and has produced, we're just not going to see this very often. So we will see how much Jordan Seaton plays this up. I said it the other day on the show. Texas and Oregon make as much sense to me as anybody because they are both very clearly all in on 2026. Oregon certainly, maybe even more than Texas, needs O-line help, although O-line was a weakness for Texas this year. And then kind of most importantly, I just think, it just speaks to the fact that we are now in a world where Texas is all in. Both of them are all in. And what is another $4 million when it's all said and done? All right, I'll tell you what, I think that is it for today's show. Before we get out of here, I mentioned it a second ago. You already know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank SeatGeek and the SeatGeek app. Okay, so SeatGeek is America's #1 ticketing app. Over 28 million downloads. And what I love about SeatGeek is two things. One, every ticket on the app is graded 1 through 10 with a green dot or a red dot. Green dot means go ahead and purchase. Red dot means stay away. So they just tell you if the ticket is good or not. But what I really love about SeatGeek is that nobody, and I do mean nobody, takes care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod quite like SeatGeek. If you go to SeatGeek.com or download the SeatGeek app, if you use promo code Torres, that's promo code TORRES, you get $20 off your first purchase. So many of you have taken advantage of this offer. We really appreciate it. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, $20 off your first purchase. All right, I think that's it for this Friday show. It's Thursday, but many of you will listen on Friday. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you again to all of you who tuned in. And like I said, man, we are going to very certainly be talking a lot of college hoops here in the coming weeks and months. And Wednesday felt like just an awesome, awesome day to start. Time to go. Thank you guys for listening. And we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. We'll be back Sunday morning, preview the national championship game, talk some weekend college hoops. Hope everybody has a great weekend. See everybody on Sunday.